At 8 years old, I was told I was an unplanned mistake and dumped in a foster home 20 years later. When I found success, they reappeared, demanding I save the very family that once abandoned me. Hey Reddit, I don't post much but figured I'd share something that's been sitting with me for a long time. Let's just say my childhood didn't exactly start with a fair hand, and my so-called family made choices that still blow my mind today. What followed was years of being tossed around, finding people who actually gave a damn, and later having to face the same folks who once wrote me off. It's not a feel-good story, but it's real, and maybe some of you will understand why I handled things the way I did. I, 30 male, was 8, the first time I realized my parents actually hated me. I don't mean the normal parents get mad and yell kind of stuff. I mean the real, ugly type of hate where you can tell deep down they wish you didn't exist. My house wasn't a home. It was a cramped place that always smelled like grease and smoke. My mom, Janet, was always pacing around with a cigarette in her mouth, barking at everyone like she ran some factory. My dad, Bill, was either at work or pretending to be at work. When he was home, he mostly sat in the recliner with the TV blasting. And then there was my sister Sawyer. She was the golden child, 2 years older than me, always pampered, always getting what she wanted. If she wanted pizza, we had pizza. If she wanted a new doll, she got it. If I asked for anything, I got told to stop being needy. The night everything snapped started pretty normal. Sawyer had just gotten this tiny puppy for her birthday. A fluffy little thing that everyone instantly loved. Everyone except me, I guess. Not because I didn't like dogs, but because I wasn't allowed to touch it. Sawyer kept saying, "Don't let him near it, he'll break it like he breaks everything." One evening, the dog wandered over to me while I was sitting on the floor drawing. I thought, finally, I can pet it for once. I reached out, and the stupid thing yelped. Probably stepped on a crayon or something, but Sawyer screamed like I'd kicked it. Mom and Dad came rushing in, and of course she told them I hurt the dog. Bill glared at me. Janet grabbed my arm so tight it hurt. "What did you do now? You can't go one day without causing problems, can you?" "I didn't do anything," I muttered, but nobody cared. Then Sawyer, standing there smug with the dog in her arms, said the line that set my mom off. "He ruins everything." And Janet exploded. "You know what?" "She's right," she screamed, her voice cracking. "You were never supposed to be here, Jonah. You were unplanned. A mistake. We should have never kept you this long. We never even wanted a boy." I froze. I swear I felt my ears ringing like someone had smacked me in the head. Bill didn't jump in to defend me. He just sighed like she was saying something obvious. "We tried, Janet. 8 years is more than enough." I couldn't even look at them. All I could do was shove my hand in my pocket and squeeze the chipped toy car I always carried around. It was scratched up, one wheel missing, but it was mine. The only thing that had stuck with me longer than their patience. That night, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. They weren't even whispering. "I called the place," Bill said. "They'll take him in a few days." "Good," Mom answered. "I can't keep living like this." "He was a mistake, Bill. We're not ruining our lives over him." They talked about me like I wasn't their son. Like I was some busted appliance they were finally getting rid of. I sat in the hallway, knees pulled to my chest, twisting that toy car in my fingers, trying to convince myself I'd misheard. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. The next few days were weird. Nobody spoke to me unless it was to yell. Sawyer carried her dog around like a trophy. Mom and Dad acted almost cheerful, like a weight was about to be lifted off their shoulders. No one packed my clothes. No one asked what I wanted to take. It was like they couldn't wait to erase me. The morning it happened, Bill drove me in his beat-up car. Mom didn't even bother coming. Sawyer waved from the porch, holding her stupid dog, like she was happy to see me go. I sat in the back seat clutching the toy car in my hand, pressing the sharp edge into my palm just to feel something real. I thought maybe we were going somewhere fun. A park? A visit? Kids are dumb like that. We hold on to hope even when the evidence is stacked against us. But when we pulled up, it wasn't a park. It was this big old brick building with bars on the windows and a faded sign out front. A children's home. Bill put the car in park, didn't even look back at me. "Out," he said flatly. I hesitated. "When are you coming back?" He sighed, rubbed his forehead, then said the coldest words I've ever heard. "We're not. This is better for everyone. Better for everyone." A lady in a gray sweater came out to meet us. She had a clipboard and this fake smile like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. Bill signed some papers, shoved me forward, then turned around and drove off. Didn't hug me, didn't say goodbye, just left. I stood there with my toy car digging into my palm, watching the car get smaller and smaller until it disappeared. That was the exact moment my childhood ended. The lady with the clipboard led me inside like she was walking a delivery to the back room. No one asked if I was hungry. No one cared if I had anything with me. Just a quick signature, "We'll take it from here." And my dad was gone. I stood there in a hall that smelled like bleach and potatoes, clutching my little toy car so tight my fingers hurt. The children's home was loud. Not happy loud, more like chaotic loud. Kids running up and down the halls, slamming doors, fighting over chairs in the TV room. Some were older teenagers, some little like me. All of us dumped for different reasons, but stuck in the same place. I didn't know the rules yet, so I just stood there until one of the staff shoved me toward a bunk bed and said, "Top's open. That's you." I climbed up, sat on the thin mattress, and stared at the ceiling. My backpack wasn't there because I didn't have one. My parents hadn't packed me a single thing. All I had was the shirt on my back and the toy car in my hand. The kid in the bottom bunk rolled over and looked at me. "You knew?" he asked. I nodded. He didn't say anything else, just turned back toward the wall. That was the welcome. The days there blurred together. Breakfast was always the same watery oatmeal or dry toast. Lunch was whatever they could make in bulk. Dinner was early, and you better eat fast, because the older kids would snatch seconds before you even finished your first plate. Nights were the worst. Kids crying, staff yelling, sometimes both at once. The place had this constant hum of misery that you couldn't escape. I figured out pretty quick that if you stayed quiet, you got ignored. And ignored was better than targeted. Some kids fought for attention, acted out, threw stuff. I wasn't one of them. I just kept my head down and kept the toy car in my pocket like it was a piece of armor. Months went by like that. No visits, no calls, no word from my parents. Not that I expected any. They had made it clear I was gone for good. Then one afternoon, everything changed. A couple showed up. Not in fancy clothes, not smiling like salespeople. Just regular people. The man had broad shoulders, messy hair, and grease stains on his shirt. The woman had tired eyes but kind ones, like she'd been through enough to know when someone else was hurting. Their names were Tom and Linda. The staff lady tried her best sales pitch. This one's Jonah. Quiet boy. Keeps to himself. No real trouble. I hated how she made me sound like a product on a shelf. Tom crouched down a little to look me in the eye. Hey, champ. You like burgers? I just shrugged. He chuckled. Well, good. My wife makes the best ones in the county. We own a diner a few miles from here. Could use an extra set of hands someday. Linda leaned in. We can't promise fancy things, but we can promise you won't have to wonder where your next meal is. It wasn't the words that got me. It was how they said it. Not like a pitch, not like they were rescuing me. Just honest. Like they were offering me a seat at their table if I wanted it. I didn't say yes. I didn't say anything. But the staff told me later that night that I was leaving in the morning. The ride to their place was quiet. Tom drove a beat-up truck that smelled like coffee and fries. Linda tried to make small talk. Asked if I liked music, if I had a favorite subject in school, but I just stared out the window, gripping my toy car. I didn't know if I could trust them yet. When we pulled up, I saw the diner first. Neon sign flickering, parking lot half full, the smell of grease and bacon hitting me before I even stepped out. Behind it was a small house with peeling paint and a crooked mailbox. Nothing glamorous, but compared to the children's home, it felt like another planet. Linda opened the door to the house and motioned me inside. The first thing I noticed was a handwritten note taped to the wall. In messy blue marker it said, "Welcome home, Jonah." I stared at it, not sure what to think. "Your room's down the hall," Tom said, carrying my new pillow under his arm. "It's not much, but it's yours." The room had mismatched sheets, a small dresser, and a window that looked out at the diner's parking lot. On the dresser, someone had left a little stack of comic books. I ran my hand over the covers like they might disappear if I touched them too hard. That night, when I lay in the bed, it felt too soft compared to the hard bunk from the children's home. I didn't sleep much, half expecting someone to yank the sheets away or tell me I didn't belong. But nobody did. It was quiet, except for the faint hum of the diner sign outside. At first it was just foster placement, but a year later the adoption papers came through. That's when it felt official. I wasn't just a kid they took in, I was their son on paper too. The next morning I woke up to the smell of pancakes. Real ones, not burnt toast or watery oatmeal. Tom was in the kitchen flipping them like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Hungry, champ?" he asked. I nodded slowly. He slid a plate in front of me. Golden pancakes with butter melting on top. I didn't know it then, but that was the first real meal of my new life. From that morning on, the diner became the center of everything. It wasn't just a business for Tom and Linda, it was their whole life. And before long, it was mine too. At first, I just watched. Tom would flip burgers and crack jokes with customers, while Linda worked the register and barked back orders to the kitchen. The place was noisy, greasy, and always smelled like coffee and fries. I sat in a booth with my plate, toy car in my pocket, just trying to take it all in. It didn't take long before Tom handed me a rag and pointed at the tables. "If you're gonna hang around here, might as well make yourself useful." So that's what I did. Wiped tables, stacked ketchup bottles, picked up straw wrappers and napkins that kids left behind. Nobody told me I was in the way. Nobody told me to shut up. For the first time, being useful actually meant something. After school, I'd head straight to the diner. Some kids went to soccer practice. I went to sweep floors and refill salt shakers. Customers started recognizing me. Old truckers would nod and say, "There's the kid." Families would wave when I carried menus over. Even regulars knew my name before long. I wasn't the mistake here. I was just Jonah, the kid at the diner. Tom started teaching me little things. How to mop without leaving streaks. How to carry 3 plates at once. How to tell when a burger was done without cutting it open. "Watch the juice on top," he'd say. Linda handled the money side. She showed me how to count change fast and roll coins so the bank wouldn't gripe. She even made me practice with fake orders at the counter until I could hand back exact change without thinking. The work was tiring, but I didn't mind. At the children's home, chores felt like punishment. Here, they felt like practice. Then came the night everything changed. It was late, near closing. Just a couple of customers left, the kind who nursed black coffee until the chairs were already flipped on tables. I was behind the counter wiping down the salt shakers when the bell on the door jingled. A guy walked in wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. He kept his hands stuffed in his pocket like he was hiding something. He walked straight up to the register and growled, "Open it!" I froze. I didn't know what to do. Linda stiffened behind the counter, and Tom, who had been scrubbing the grill, stepped forward, slow and steady. "Buddy," Tom said, voice calm, "why don't we talk outside?" The guy yanked something out of his pocket. It wasn't a real gun. Later, I realized it was just a metal pipe. But in the moment, it didn't matter. My heart pounded so hard I couldn't breathe. "Open it now, lady," the man barked, banging the pipe against the counter. Linda's hands shook as she opened the till. Tom raised a hand. "Easy. You can have the money, but you don't touch her." The guy shoved a crumpled bag forward, and Linda dumped the cash inside. Bills fluttered on the counter. My toy car was in my pocket, and I gripped it so hard it left marks on my palm. I kept thinking, this is where it ends. Just like before. Me being powerless again. But then Tom stepped between the man and Linda. Straight up put his body there. That's all of it, he said firmly. Now you walk out that door. For a second, I thought the guy was going to swing the pipe at Tom. My stomach dropped. But after a tense stare, he snatched the bag and bolted out the door. The bell jingled like it was mocking us. Silence. Just the sound of my own pulse in my ears. Linda exhaled hard and grabbed Tom's arm. Are you insane? She hissed. Tom just shook his head. Money we can replace. You two? Number. That line stuck with me more than anything. My real parents never would have said it. To them, I was the replaceable thing. But Tom? He meant it. The cops came, wrote up a report, asked questions. I sat there still gripping the toy car like it was the only thing keeping me steady. They never caught the guy, but Tom and Linda didn't let it shake them for long. The very next morning, the diner opened like normal. After that night, Tom started including me more. Not just wiping tables, real stuff. Taking orders, running food, helping at the grill when it got busy. I earned calluses, burns, and blisters, but I didn't care. It meant he trusted me. The diner itself grew with us. At first, it was just a handful of booths, but word spread. On weekends, the line went out the door. Tom bought the empty lot next door, knocked down the wall, and added more seating. I helped carry lumber, sweep up dust, even scribbled my name on a beam before they sealed it up. Then came the catering truck, a rusty step van that barely ran. We scrubbed it, painted it white, slapped the diner's logo on the side, and started hitting up fairs, football games, and factory lots. That's when I learned what real chaos was. Shouting orders, grease popping, people yelling over each other. But I thrived on it. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was part of a team. School was still whatever. Teachers didn't expect much from me, but they couldn't ignore the fact I wasn't invisible anymore. I had stories, real ones, about saving a catering gig when the fryer died, about crazy customers who wanted fries with no salt, ketchup on the side, and their burger cut in half like it was a science experiment. Fridays became our thing. After closing, Tom would lock up, flip the closed sign, and put an Elvis record on the jukebox. We'd sit there, just the three of us, eating leftover pie. And he'd always end up saying, "One day, kid, this place will be yours." Back then, I didn't know if he meant it, but I wanted it to be true. High school came and went, and I was basically living two lives. During the day, I was just another kid in class, the one who smelled faintly of fries because I came straight from morning prep at the diner. At night and weekends, I was a worker. By the time I was 16, Tom trusted me enough to run the grill when he had to step out. At 17, I was handling closing shifts with Linda, checking the register while Tom fixed some busted pipe or fryer part in the back. Other kids at school bragged about summer vacations or family road trips. I bragged about pulling off a double shift on State Fair weekend without screwing up a single order. It wasn't glamorous, but it made me feel like I was worth something. Linda was the one who really pushed me about school. She didn't want me to be stuck in the diner forever, unless I chose it. "Get your diploma, then decide," she'd say, wagging a pen at me like a teacher. Tom would just laugh and say, "School is good, but don't forget the real lessons come from busted fryers and cranky customers." Between the two of them, I learned how to balance both. When graduation came, they treated it like I'd won the lottery. Tom bought balloons, bright blue and red ones that barely fit in the truck. Linda baked a pie and decorated it with my name and frosting. After the ceremony, we went back to the diner, and half the regulars showed up with cards and cheap gifts. Truckers, families, even the mailman. They filled the booths, clapped when I walked in wearing the gown, and cheered when Tom announced, "This kid's going places." It was cheesy, but it was the first time I ever felt like people were proud of me. I didn't stop there. I enrolled in business administration at the local college. It wasn't some fancy university, but it was good enough. Classes during the day, diner shifts in the evenings, homework after closing. I barely slept, but I didn't care. I was building something, even if I didn't fully understand what yet. 2 years into college, everything flipped. It was a Thursday night in late summer. Diner had just closed. I was at the house cramming for an exam when sirens woke me up. At first, I thought it was just another accident on the highway, but when I stepped outside, I saw smoke rising from the diner's roof. My stomach dropped. By the time I ran over, firefighters were already hosing it down. Flames shot out the back windows, and the smell of burning grease filled the air. Linda was on the sidewalk in her nightgown, screaming at Tom, who was trying to go back inside. He kept yelling that the new fryer had cost too much to let it burn. 2 firefighters grabbed him before he could get through the door, but the smoke had already gotten to him. He collapsed right there on the pavement. I'll never forget that sound. Linda screaming his name while the paramedics worked on him. They tried, but the smoke had filled his lungs. He didn't make it. Just like that, Tom was gone. The fire was blamed on old wiring in the kitchen walls. It tore through fast, and half the building was gutted before it was under control. Linda never recovered from that night. She survived, but she wasn't the same. She tried to keep the diner alive, but grief ate her up. Within a year, her health tanked. Stress, exhaustion, and depression. One hospital stay after another until one day, she didn't come back home. Just like that, I lost her too. The day after the funeral, a lawyer sat me down with papers. Tom and Linda had left me everything. The house, what was left of the diner, the catering truck, even their savings account. It didn't feel real. I was 21 and the sole owner of a pile of ashes and a beat-up van. Everyone assumed I'd sell. Some of Linda's distant relatives even whispered that I should move on and that they could help take the burden. But Tom's words wouldn't leave my head. "One day, kid, this place will be yours." So I didn't sell. I rebuilt. At first, it was just about survival. Insurance money covered some repairs, but not all. I begged the bank for a loan and backed it with what little savings Tom and Linda had left me. Friends of the diner volunteered to help repaint, fix tables, even haul in secondhand equipment. 6 months later, we finally got the place patched up enough to run a soft opening. Just a few booths, a smaller menu, nothing fancy. The real ribbon cut, the official reopening, was still ahead. I worked like a machine. College during the day, diner at night. Slowly, things picked up again. Customers came back, drawn by the story as much as the food. The kid who kept it alive after the fire. That's what they called me. Over the next few years, I expanded. First, I bought newer equipment. Then, I opened a second location 2 towns over. I used everything Tom and Linda had taught me. Treat customers fair, don't cheat on portions, and never yell at staff unless they actually deserve it. It worked. The diner grew into a chain. By 25, I had 4 locations, and was hiring people I used to serve food to. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit in the original diner, the one rebuilt from the ashes, and put Elvis on the jukebox. I'd eat leftover pie at the booth where Tom used to sit. He'd said one day the place would be mine, and now it was. The rebuilt diner wasn't flashy, but it meant something. Fresh paint, new booths, shiny chrome counters, and that same old jukebox humming in the corner. It smelled like bacon grease and coffee again, not smoke and ashes. To me, it was proof that I hadn't let the fire win, that Tom and Linda's work wasn't gone. We planned a small reopening. Nothing big, just free pie samples, a ribbon across the door, and a few regulars hanging around to cheer. The same construction guys who'd hammered nails into the new walls showed up. Families from the neighborhood came, even a local paper guy with his camera. It wasn't about publicity, it was about proving we were back. I was holding the scissors, about to cut the ribbon, when I heard a voice that made my stomach twist. "Jonah, my boy!" I froze. My hand locked around the scissors. For a second, I thought I was hearing things. But then I turned, and there he was. Bill. He looked worse than I remembered. Beard patchy, clothes hanging off him like they belonged to someone else. He shoved through the small crowd like he owned the place. Behind him was Sawyer, my sister, looking worn out and sour, tugging 2 kids along, a boy and a girl, maybe 5 and 7. They shuffled nervously, clutching her hands. The chatter around me died. People whispered, trying to figure out who this random guy was. Then Bill said it louder. "My son! Look at you, all grown up!" My jaw clenched. He didn't get to call me that. Not after everything. I stepped forward, blocking the door before he could barge in. "What do you want, Bill?" He smirked like this was some warm reunion. "We tracked you down, you know? Called the group home, asked around, took a while, but here we are. I knew you'd turn into something big. Didn't I tell you, Sawyer?" He's made it. Sawyer didn't answer. She just stared at the ground, her kids fidgeting beside her. Bill opened his arms like he was waiting for me to hug him. "This is incredible. Your own diner. Just like families should have." I cut him off. Don't act like family now." That wiped the grin off his face for a second, but he recovered fast. He waved at the kids. "Listen, things have been rough. Your mom ran off with another man. Sawyer's on her own now. 2 kids, no help. And you," he gestured to the diner behind me, "you've got all this. You've got more than enough." The crowd murmured. Some people looked uncomfortable. Then he said the real reason he'd come. "You need to do for them what Tom and Linda did for you. Give them a home. A chance." Gasps. People's heads turned toward me, waiting for my answer. Sawyer's kids stared up at me, wide-eyed, confused. One of them whispered, "Is that Uncle Jonah?" I swallowed hard. The word cut deep. Uncle. I'd never been anyone's uncle before. Bill saw my hesitation and pressed harder. "Don't be selfish, Jonah. They saved you when you had nothing. Now it's your turn. You owe it to these kids." That word, "oh," hit a nerve. My voice came out sharper than I meant. "I don't owe you anything. You dumped me at 8 years old like trash. Tom and Linda gave me a life in spite of you. Don't you dare stand here and act like I'm in your debt." The whole crowd went dead silent. Sawyer shifted uncomfortably, her kids tugging at her sleeves. Bill's face twisted, but he still tried one last pitch, louder this time. "Think about the kids. Don't let them grow up like you did." I looked at them. Small, scared, caught in the middle. None of it was their fault. But I wasn't about to let Bill push his failures onto me. I stepped forward. "They're not my responsibility. Not today. Not ever. If you wanted them to have a better life, you should have learned how to be a father before throwing me away." Some of the regulars actually clapped at that. Bill's smirk vanished completely. Sawyer turned red, pulling her kids away from the crowd. Bill followed, muttering under his breath like he was the victim. The ribbon still got cut, but the excitement was gone. Instead of a celebration, it felt like everyone had witnessed something ugly that couldn't be unseen. That night, when the diner was finally quiet, I sat in a booth alone. I pulled the toy car from my pocket, the same one I'd had since the day they dumped me, and rolled it across the table. Bill thought he could repeat history, that I'd just take his mess like Tom and Linda once took me. But he was wrong. This time, I got to choose. Word got around fast after the reopening. In a small town, gossip moves quicker than the coffee pot at breakfast rush. Some folks thought I did the right thing standing up to Bill. Others muttered that I was cold for turning my back on family. I didn't waste time defending myself. Anyone who knew the real story didn't need convincing, and the people who didn't, they were never there when I was 8, so their opinion didn't mean a thing. But the kids' faces stuck with me. The way they looked at me outside the diner, like they were waiting for me to be the answer to a question they didn't understand. That image followed me home, followed me when I tried to sleep, even followed me when I was cooking eggs the next morning. A few days later, Bill and Sawyer showed up again. They didn't bother waiting for an invitation. They were sitting in a booth at the diner when I walked in, like they belonged there. Bill grinned the second he saw me. Sawyer didn't smile, just stared out the window while her kids colored on a napkin. "Look who it is," Bill said. "The big man himself. We came to clear the air." I didn't sit. "Make it quick." Bill leaned forward, lowering his voice like we were doing some shady deal. "The other day got messy. Emotions high, you know how it is. But we're family, Jonah. We can work something out." "No," I said flatly. "We're not working anything out. You made your choice when I was 8. Sawyer finally spoke, her voice low and shaky. "They're just kids, Jonah. They didn't do anything wrong. I can't give them what they need." I looked at her, then at the 2 little ones. They weren't loud like most kids. They just sat there, clutching crayons like they were afraid of dropping them. "I'll help them," I said. "But not you. Not Bill, just the kids." Bill's grin froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, "I'll pay for their school. Uniforms, books, transportation. But I'm not handing you cash, not a dime. The money goes straight to the schools, and only if they're actually showing up. If they start skipping or you try to use them to squeeze me, it ends. That's the deal." Bill slammed his palm on the table, making the crayons jump. "That's not fair. You can't just—" I cut him off. "I can, and I just did." Sawyer didn't argue. She just pulled her kids closer, eyes fixed on the table. Bill muttered curses under his breath, but he knew I wasn't budging. Eventually, he stormed out, shoving the door so hard it rattled. Sawyer stayed behind, long enough to whisper a thank you I barely heard, then followed after him. The next morning, I called my lawyer. We set up educational funds for both kids, locked accounts that only the schools could draw from. Tuition, supplies, bus fees, even after-school programs. Everything went through the office. No cash ever touched Bill or Sawyer's hands. Sawyer even signed a limited consent that listed me as their educational contact, so the school could talk to me directly about attendance and grades. I also had my lawyer file for child support on Sawyer's behalf. Both fathers had skipped town, pretending the kids didn't exist. Now they were going to get dragged into court whether they liked it or not. Partly, it was about justice. Mostly, it was about making sure the cycle of running away in the family stopped with me. Weeks later, I visited the school. I didn't make a big show of it. I just showed up, sat in the principal's office, and asked how they were doing. "Attendance is perfect," she said. "Grades are improving. They're polite, hard-working kids." When they walked in to see me, their eyes lit up. The boy had a new uniform that actually fit him. The girl carried a backpack that didn't look like it was falling apart. They sat quietly, waiting for me to talk. "I'm not here to play games," I told them. "I'm not your dad. I'm not moving you into my house. But I'll give you a shot. As long as you keep showing up to school and putting in the work, I'll keep helping. That's the deal. Understand?" They both nodded fast, like soldiers getting orders. I nodded back. "Good. Then we're on the same page." I left the school and didn't look back until I was in my truck. That's when it hit me. This was the first time in my life I was breaking the chain. Bill had thrown me away. Sawyer had dropped her kids into a mess. But me? I was drawing a line. The kids would get their shot, but on my terms. Later that week, Bill tried cornering me outside the diner. He looked worse than before, reeking of sweat, his voice desperate. "Come on, Jonah. Just a little cash. Just until I get back on my feet." I stared at him, remembering the man who'd signed me away like a broken appliance. "No," I said. "Whatever I had to give you, you threw away 20 years ago." He mumbled something I couldn't catch and slunk off into the dark. That was the last time he tried asking me directly. Months rolled by. The kids stayed in school. Report cards came back solid. I didn't go to birthday parties or school plays, but I showed up for every parent-teacher meeting, sat across from their teachers, and made sure they knew someone was watching. Bill and Sawyer? They were background noise. A couple sentences a year, usually asking for things they'd never get. They didn't matter anymore. The kids were the only ones I backed, and as long as they kept pushing forward, I wasn't going to let them fall. It didn't take long to see the change. Within a few months, their teachers were calling me with updates. "Big improvement," one said. "They're respectful. They try hard." It wasn't about talent or brains, it was effort. That's what mattered to me. I kept my involvement simple. I showed up at meetings, signed off on whatever forms needed signing, and made sure the bills were paid on time. No birthday parties, no weekend visits, just structure. The kids seemed to get it. They didn't ask for more. They just worked with what they had. Sawyer, on the other hand, was sour. She cornered me outside the school once, arms crossed, voice sharp. "You think you're better than me just because you write checks?" I didn't argue. I just looked her in the eye and said, "Better than leaving your kids with nothing?" "Yeah, I do." She didn't have a comeback for that. Bill tried pulling the "we're family" line a few more times. He showed up at the diner one night looking half drunk and muttering about how he'd set me up for success. I laughed in his face. "You set me up at the children's home, that's all you did." He didn't like that answer, but he walked away because he knew it was the truth. Meanwhile, the kids were doing things that actually mattered. The boy joined the school's robotics club. The girl started writing essays that teachers pinned on the board. I didn't clap or hand out medals. I just told them, "Good. Keep it up." They nodded like they understood the deal hadn't changed. By the end of that school year, both kids had clean attendance records and grades that weren't embarrassing. When their teachers asked me if I wanted to sit in on awards day, I said no. It wasn't about sitting in an auditorium clapping. It was about making sure the cycle of failure stopped before it swallowed them too. Bill and Sawyer faded more each month. They still lived in the same rundown house on the edge of town, still waiting for me to soften up and hand them a second chance. That day never came. The only time I even acknowledged them was when Sawyer dropped the kids off late to school. The principal called me, and I reminded her, if they start slipping, the support ends. That's not negotiable. Funny enough, after that, the kids were never late again. I didn't play uncle. I didn't play dad. I didn't play savior. I just gave them a shot. And for the first time, somebody actually took it. That was enough for me. I wasn't trying to be their replacement family. I was just keeping a promise to the people who showed up for me first. In every diner, the plaque says Tom and Linda taught me what family is. Turns out, holding a line is part of that.